call. Let's see, make sure all commissioners on record by voice of interview. Commissioner Loper.
Here.
Mr. Deloach.
Here.
Mr. Kiefer.
Here.
Commissioner Burdette. Here. Commissioner Ford.
Here.
So we're going to call to order this Effingham County Board of Commissioners meeting this August 17th, 2021 at 5 o'clock. Everyone in attendance. And let's get one of the please rise to the indication given by Commissioner Burdette and let's stand for the pledge of allegiance as well.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to come before you today and make judgments and do what we need to do for this county. Father, I pray you just be with us, Lord, in every step of the way, that we make honest and good judgments on everything we see and hear and do, Lord. May we glorify you in some way, Lord. We pray for those that are sick, Lord. We pray that they get better quickly, Father. You intervene with them and help them to get better quickly. And Lord, also just be with those that have lost loved ones, Lord, and just be with their families and give them peace, Lord. We pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get into the approval agenda, I just want to make a comment about Officer Ramsey. We appreciate his service to our community. And if anybody had a chance to attend the service yesterday and listen to our sheriff, it really makes you proud of the community that we're in. The passion and the heart that he expressed, and our officers enjoy working for him and why we enjoy such a safe community. We'll lift that up to us as remember Officer Ramsey Man and his family, and also keeping prayers for our country as we're going through this time in Afghanistan, all our men and women who are in harm's way. We forget that we're just one county in the midst of a much larger government and a much larger community. So it encourages us to keep those in our prayers this week as we go along. With that, we have our agenda before us tonight, and the consideration to approve the agenda, and I understand there's a addition to the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and board members. Our changes tonight include removal of consent agenda number 2, which is consideration to approve the revision of section 2.2, conflict resolution grievance process of the human resources standards of practice. Additionally, we will be adding as new business number 12, consideration to approve a revised intergovernmental agreement between Effingham County and the cities of Springfield, Guyton, and Lincoln related to the upcoming special purpose local option sales tax referendum. Also, Mr. Chairman, we'd like to ask that you consider laying on the table old business number 1 and 2, as we need to go through our new business items and come back to old business because of one of the items on the agenda needing approval prior to old business number 1.
Okay, so we'll lay that on the table until we get through all the new business,
Yes,
not just business items.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. And then there's 2 changes to our agenda. Any questions or discussion from the board?
Make motion to approve said changes.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Loper, excuse me, Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Loper to approve the agenda with the 2 changes noted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. And we have our agenda. Next item is number 6 is consideration to approve the August 3rd, 2021 Commissioner meeting minutes. Are there any corrections or additions noted from the board? A motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as approved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Deloach to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. And the minutes are approved. We will welcome our public tonight. Hope you'll keep your comments, and once you comment in the appropriate time, keep them to 2 or 3 minutes if you can, so anyone wanting to speak can speak. Things on to the agenda items, if at all possible, as we'd like to do, stick to our agenda. But if you need something on the agenda in the future, you can contact our clerk or our chairman or our county manager, and we'll see if we can place you on the future agenda. All our items, documents are in the clerk's office. They're on our website. If you've had a chance to review those, and are prepared to comment at the appropriate time. With that, we'll move into our consent agenda. It's number 9 on our agenda. There's now 4 items on our agenda. And I'll read those for us, they'll be clear, and I'll take a motion. Number 1 on the consent agenda is consideration to approve to renew the fire protection service agreement with the city of Guyton. 2 was removed. Item 3 is consideration to renew the intergovernmental agreement by and between Georgia Department of Corrections and Effingham County Prison for paper-based GED testing for offenders. Item number 4 is consideration to approve the ratification of award of task order number 22-25-001 to Atlas Foe Engineering Services for repair of the old Louisville Road pipe collapse. Item number 5 on the consent agenda, which is the 4th item, consideration to approve to submit a grant application to the Petco Foundation Animal Welfare Grant Program. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve as read.
Motion by Mr. Burdette. Do I have a second?
Second.
You gave the second, so it's the last piece.
I gave one.
Okay, Mr. Kiefer gave the second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. The last one's a little more difficult to tell who's if the first and second. All right, we're going to place lay old business on the table because we have a new business item we got to take care of before we do all the old business. So we'll move to new business. Item number 1 under new business is Millage public hearing, and we'll turn that over to Mark Barnes.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Barnes, the Deputy Director of Finance. I'm here for Christy Carpenter, the Finance Director. The staff report and the documents in your packet for this item cover agenda items 1 through 4. And so a summary. The staff recommends approval of the resolution of levy taxes, the approval of the proposed millage rates, and approval of the PT 32 and PT 35 forms for submission to the state. Over on page 60 of your documents, you will see the resolution for the millage rates, and I'll go through those real quickly. The first millage rate, the main one, is number 1 for county government purposes. This is the M&O rate, and this one
We
is...
don't have an overhead screen on this. It'd be good for the public to be able to see it as we can see it. Possible put that up there.
It's going to take me a couple minutes.
Just when we're going into a public hearing, I think they need to be able to see it and make them be able to speak to it more efficiently. While he's looking that up, Mark will go through all the items on this agenda for the 4 or 5 items. Then I'll come back and take a vote on each one, but we won't have Mark address it. He's just going to do one presentation for time's sake, and then we'll come back and address each one for the public hearing and then vote. Okay. When he gets that up, Mark, I'm going to let you finish your whole presentation.
Okay.
Then I'm going to call for a public hearing on that first item. We'll go through the public hearing, and then we'll go through the votes.
Yes, sir.
there, I think that's what you want to pull up. And I'll show all the village rates, all the others, and talk about a lot of different ones, that'll give us the overview. Make it like 75%.
Yeah.
I think you can just see that. I'm going to proceed, Mark.
Okay, so this was page 16. This is the resolution to levy the taxes. So the first rate there is number 1 for county government purposes. That's the M&O, the maintenance and operations rate. That's at 7.337. That is the rollback rate for, last year that was 7.528. Number 2 is the other one the county sets. That's the medical indigent rate, and it's at 1.600. The next rate is the IDA, and the one below that says for support of maintenance of education. Those two are set, one's by the IDA and the other one's set by the Board of Education. Those are at 2.00 for the IDA and 15.810 for the Board of Education. State of Georgia is 0 as usual. The number 6 is the county public works and roads, and that's at 1.250 with county recreation at 0.650. And number 8, county parks at 0.100. Bringing that total to 28.747, which last year that total was higher at 30.494. We had the millage rate for the Fort Howard project on Rincon, and those things were also in that list that are not going on this year. So that's that is pretty much the entirety of the millage rates right there. And the total increase of that.
And it did fall under the 3% threshold of the increase, which is good.
Yes, sir.
What general, just ask a question, we're going, our rate, millage rate itself is actually lower.
The county M&O rate, yes.
Same like the rich.
But when we talk about an increase, is that as a result of an increase in property values? Where's the increase coming from exactly?
The PT 32 on page,
Predominantly, if the values went up, and even if the values go up, it makes your taxes go over 3%, you have to advertise a tax increase, so we lowered the millage to keep it below, it's like 2.56, I think, or something.
the rollback this year was 0.191.
I mean, the percent increase on the PT 30 overall.
Oh, was it let me see. On the overall digest increase, we have the 5-year comparison here somewhere.
I
One
want to
second.
say it's like 2.7, 2.7, it's just under 2.
So just to clarify, especially for the public, we're dedicated to keeping our taxes low. We lost the can, we're going back, as far as that goes, tax values, how we appreciate it.
Right.
The unincorporated will probably see a little increase because of the service delivery. Do you want to address that for the public hearing?
Sure. So on the, this year incorporates the service delivery agreement that we, within the last month, had all 3 cities and the county agree to. And what that does, which changes the tax bill a little bit, is we institute a rollback to the municipalities by virtue of having special tax district millage. And so as part of the agreement with them, with the cities, we've agreed to keep that rollback at 2 mills. So when you add the county public works and roads, recreation and parks, that adds up to 2 mills. So that's how we calculated that rollback. County parks, they've asked us to create a separate millage line for that. This is mostly from Springfield and Guyton, since they maintain some parks within their jurisdiction. but do not provide recreation. We used to combine them into one line item. So if you are unincorporated, you have that 2 mil combination of public works, county recreation, county parks. If you are the city of Rincon, you can reduce that because we have the deal essentially where they provide some of our recreation activities for the residents in the Rincon area, regardless of whether they are incorporated or unincorporated. And if you're in Springfield and Guyton, you are only paying the recreation portion of that, the 0.65, which we weren't getting last year, the county wasn't getting last year, even though we were providing recreation services for those two cities. So there'll be some changes on the tax bill this year, but it's all related to the agreement that the cities and counties came to with regards to service delivery.
Well, with that, I'm open to public hearing to see if anyone has any questions or comments from the public relating to millage 52 vote on. Anyone wanting to speak for or against or just comments or questions about millage rate? Seeing no one wanting to speak tonight, I'll close this public hearing. And I'm thinking that moves us to item number 2, the resolution, because there's no vote for item number 1. So we need to approve, consideration to approve a resolution 021-40 to levy the 2021 taxes. We have a motion to approve the resolution.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Loper, second Mr. Deloach, to approve the resolution 021-40 to levy the 2021 taxes as presented as public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Item number 3 on the new business is consideration to approve the county millage rate form for the tax year 2021, the PT 35. The motion to approve the form PT 35.
Make a motion to approve the PT 35.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Loper, to approve the PT 35 as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it is, millage is approved for the PT 35 as presented. Item number 4, the new business, consideration to approve the computation of the millage rate rollback form for the tax year 2020. This is PT 32.1. You want to get that up there, let me see that one, or you got it in the packets?
Page 65 in your packets has the countywide PT 32 on it. And it'll be labeled down there in the bottom
That
right-hand
shows
corner.
the rollback. Blow it just a little bit.
It'll be the page that in the bottom right-hand corner is labeled 65.
Need one for the countywide.
This one, here you go.
There you go.
And in that, you can see in the red text near the bottom, the rollback rate calculated at 7.337, and that is the rate in the resolution on the county M&L.
Okay. So you're looking at that. Is there a motion to approve PT 32.1 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Deloach, who is the second of the hearing? Mr. Floyd? Okay. Second, Mr. Floyd, to approve PT 32.1 as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Item number 5, consideration to approve to submit an application to the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, OPB, State Fiscal Recovery Fund for a broadband infrastructure project. So we're moving off of our tax millage to another item. Mr. Martin.
Okay. Staff is requesting approval to submit an application to the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, State Fiscal Recovery Fund, for a broadband infrastructure project. The state has funds from the American Rescue Plan Act that they're making available for broadband projects to cover unserved and underserved areas of Georgia. And staff is currently working on a plan and an application for these funds. The deadline for the application is August 31st, and if awarded, the funds and the plan would come back to the board for approval of acceptance.
Okay, so let me make my question, because I was asking about how much we're going to be applying. That's going to come back to us. And if we're going to match, that's going to come back to us.
Yes, sir, that's right.
Okay.
That's correct.
So it's just approval to,
Apply for it, yes. Yeah, the deadline is coming up pretty quickly, and they wanted to go ahead and get that covered.
Yeah, this is what we've been talking about.
Exactly. And we would have to find a partner on this, because we're not necessarily in the broadband business, but the way that it essentially works with the governor with these grants is that the county actually enters into the contract to build out this particular section, and then agrees, comes to an agreement with a private partner to actually run the broadband network, whoever the provider is in the area. We have been talking to planners about this because a lot of the areas that that need coverage the most, and it's not, private companies can't necessarily create a business case as to what coming up with the capital expenditure to provide coverage there. This would really, these grants are really the only way that we can be able to get them there. So government, county government's not in the broadband business, but in this case, we'd be in there just for the construction and deployment time, and then we transfer the assets over.
And you feel like we'll be able to get everything done by the 31st?
Yeah, with
Complex application list.
yeah, and we think we'll be able to get everything in there to meet the deadline.
Okay.
And it's also coming up in a few agendas similar. There are about 3 pots of money that are eligible for these ARPA, the governor's ARPA funds. One of them is broadband and another one is water and sewer. And so then that's what the next application would be for.
to the person.
That could be accurate, but I was concerned that are we doing anything in the negative economic impact area for small businesses, for people being affected by COVID. There's a lot of other categories in here, and what I saw and read through everything, I didn't see where we're applying for any of that.
Well, some partners are, and that's one of the things. The pots of funds that we were applying for, some of them is for the negative effects that the government had to deal with regards to revenues and COVID. Just because of the circumstances of Effingham County, we don't have a lot of we don't have a lot of tourism. We've actually seen an uptick in a lot of retail sales. We don't have a lot of restaurants. So it was very difficult for us to make a case that the county itself really had a negative revenue effect for COVID itself. So we felt our strongest opportunities for the grants were in the broadband, because we've got a whole swath of land that is not served by broadband, and the water and sewer, since we're growing so fast, that extending water and sewer lines. So that's why we didn't apply for the loss of revenue ones, because we thought it would be very difficult for the county to make the case when in some cases revenues were up year over year.
What about something for the public service that's been exposed and had losses for the COVID-19 victims? It looks like there's something in there for survivor benefits. Can we apply for something like that? We lost an officer already last week. There's a category for that, so that's something we can look into.
That's something we can look into as well.
I'd love to do something like that for public service. People are on the front lines and experiencing this kind of thing, put themselves in harm's way in so many different ways, and now they're in harm's way with COVID, and that's a big impact on them.
Okay. And there's also, that is something that I know we talked about, and we had gotten different messages from the Treasury with regards to rules for that type of pay. then Commissioner Deloach had mentioned that, and we were just trying to come up with how we limit it, who, what employees really did have put themselves and their well-being at risk for the public during this time. And we do have ARPA funds that went directly to the county that we could also utilize for that.
Could be medical staff too.
Yeah, medical staff.
That'd be great.
Yeah. EMS,
Yeah.
EMS, fire, sheriff, jail. Those are the ones we were looking at.
Okay, great. That'd be awesome. Sorry, I didn't get too far off.
Just a follow-up question after that, if we're going to look into that, this seems to be time sensitive, do we need to go ahead?
Well, I think in those cases, what we'd probably do is we'd use the ARPA funds that were allocated directly to us for doing that, rather than apply for grants, because not every county or city got direct allocation of ARPA funds. And so there would be no deadline for that, although I'd have to ask Christie on that, because we did put a plan, did have to submit a plan, which we approved at the last meeting, on how we would use our ARPA funds. So I just have to review that and see how we work from there.
Make sure we need deadlines for your concern. Okay. Any other questions or comments? We'll look at alternative one, which is to approve to submit an application to OPP State Fiscal Recovery Fund for a broadband infrastructure project. Have a motion for alternative one.
Recommendation to approve alternative one.
Mr. Burdette, is that Mr. Floyd, I heard?
Yeah.
For a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. It carries. Item number 6, consideration to approve the Cultural Regional Commission, CRC, Area Agency on Aging contract number 2022-08 for fiscal year 22.
Okay, staff is requesting approval for the CRC Area Agency on Aging 2022-08 for the provision of services to our elderly population. This is the normal annual contract that we have with the CRC every year for our meals. Total funding from all sources this year is approximately $230,000, and this is up a little bit from prior years, where it was $224,000 last year, roughly. The contract covers approximately 14,000 congregate meals and 20,000 home-delivered meals. The county match for this is $14,791, which we budget for every year, so that's already covered in there.
Any questions or discussion from the board? We have a motion to approve for alternative one.
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Deloach to approve alternative one. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it passes unanimously. Item number 7 is a budget amendment, consideration to approve resolution 021-041 to amend the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget.
Okay, staff is requesting approval of an amendment for the fiscal year 22 budget. This amendment mainly brings the budget that we already have for senior citizen meals in line with the CRC contract that we just had. And there's also some miscellaneous items in here, including movements of existing funds of $10,000 in the prison for their GED program. And staff recommends alternative 1 to approve the resolution to amend the budget for fiscal year 22.
Any question or discussion? Have a motion to approve alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative.
Motion by Mr. Ford, second by Mr. Burdette to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. And it passes unanimously. Item number 8, consideration to approve to submit an application to the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, State Fiscal Recovery Fund for a water and sewer infrastructure project.
Okay, staff is requesting approval to submit an application to the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, State Fiscal Recovery Fund for water and sewer infrastructure project. Just like with the broadband project earlier, this is kind of drawing from some of those same funds that the state has for the American Rescue Plan Act. Like the previous broadband project, this has a deadline of August 31st, and any funds awarded would come back to the board for acceptance, just as with the other one. Staff is currently putting together a plan and the application, and the county's share of ARPA funds that were allocated directly to the county can be used as the match for this. So potentially a great deal of this project could be covered by ARPA funds. And staff is recommending alternative 1 to approve to submit the application.
There's been a lot of infrastructure and water sewer that needs to be addressed, so that would be great. Any questions or discussion?
I just had a question. When we're able to get something like this in a grant form, does that offset our future budget or our current budget for stuff we've already had planned? Will that alleviate some funds in the areas that's ready?
It could. In what we're looking at on this, I think you generally have a stronger case on a grant application if you make the case, but for this grant, we would not have been able to fund this project. But it is one of the projects that's on our plan. One of the projects that we discussed in our previous workshop is kind of what we're looking at. It's just not a not funded project right now, which is, I think, initially what we're looking at is the extension of sewer down Blue Jay Road to 17. But that could change. What we want to do is make sure we have an application that scores the highest, and so we're going to review what projects are out there and what we feel, it's ones that we would have done at some point anyway, and if that one's going to get the higher score, that's what we're going to submit, just to increase our odds.
I can see things like this making us much more financially strong as a county down the line.
That's right.
Any other question or discussion? Motion for alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative number 1, second.
Motion by Mr. Roper, second by Mr. Kiefer for alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it passes unanimously. Item number 9, consideration to approve the revised final plat for Clyde Road subdivision located off Courthouse Road in the 4th District.
So last September, you approved a final plat for Clyde Road subdivision. It's a 5-lot subdivision on Clyde Road and Courthouse Road. The owner, Mr. Falk, wishes to reconfigure Lot 5, and you should have that in your packet. He's said it's sort of a funny shaped lot, and what he's going to do is split off a tiny little triangle along Courthouse Road and then leave that sitting there not to be resold until the adjacent land, which is owned by JAG, comes out of KUVA, and then it'll be transferred to them and combined with their parcel, and then they will transfer some land to him so he can create a new parcel 6. So it's a little land swap, this KUVA is slowing it down. So in order for him to proceed with just sort of get this in motion, he needed us to approve an a revised final plat. The health department has approved the plan, and the county attorney is aware of it and has approved it, and we are presenting the revised final plat to you all. And all we'll do is just set his plan in motion to create an additional lot once the KUVA expires on the adjacent property and the land swap is complete.
Any questions or discussion?
Make a motion to approve alternative number 1, second.
Motion by Mr. Roper, second by Mr. Burdette to approve alternative number 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. It carries unanimously. Item number 10, consideration to approve the assemblage permit for Valkyrie Web to hold a cooker run to benefit the tiny house project for homeless veterans on August 21st, 2012. Should that be 21?
Yes, that should be 2021.
Transposition there, August 21st, 2021, at the county-owned Veterans Memorial Park in Springfield.
Ms. Valkyrie Webb contacted us and asked for assemblage permit to authorize use of the Veterans Memorial Park on that date. The Poke Run will begin in Savannah, and this is one of the stops along the way. And the flyer should be included with your packet. And this will benefit the Tiny House project in Savannah that the Homeless Authority has been working on for the past few years.
Any question or discussion from the board?
I think that's neat. I mean, these little houses they're building for these people.
I'm sorry. Can you,
These pictures,
we microphone down, Mr. Reggie, I can't hear the voice.
I said, I like this. That's a good project going on.
Yes.
They got the pictures of the little houses they're building and all this kind of stuff that's about. And maybe everybody will come out and show up and help them out a little bit.
Yeah,
I think it's very good.
great project, thank you.
I love the idea, but I'll be honest with you, I'm a little worried about doing a sewage permit next week. We stay in the code that we have.
They're gonna.
It's an outside event, I don't think that'd be one of the safest things you could do.
I don't know, it looked like it was an assembly out of the park, so that's not what it is.
Well, I think if people will practice social distancing, I think we found, this is my thoughts, we found when we drove people inside, the spread was greater. If people would have stayed outside, the spread would have been less. So if they'll be careful, I can't imagine there being hundreds and hundreds of people on that. I think it'll be a few dozen, it may be 100 people, but Veterans Park is a pretty good sized place. I would encourage people to, if you're not with someone that you're normally with, social distance from them or wear a mask when you're around. That'd be my 2 cents.
We can okay it, then it's left up to them what they want to do.
Right. And that's kind of where we are, I feel like, with this, we want to get the glass up, and we're trying to wear masks when we're closer to people, when I appear not close to you right now. I wore my mask to the restaurant the other day, I took it off to eat, I've been vaccinated, but I think we just want to get ahead of the curve with the spike that we have in our community. There's a huge spike going up, the hospitals are full, so the thing is just be careful and not get ahead of the hospitals, what they can do. I don't want to have a heart attack and need a stent and can't get in there because somebody didn't wear a mask but didn't get vaccinated. And that's the hospital. I think I would encourage us to improve, but I'll entertain a motion to approve alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second Mr. Kiefer to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye. All opposed no. So carries. Oh, no, I'm sorry, we have 1 no. So Mr. Burdette, you voted no?
And who seconded the motion? Who's the second?
I second it.
Okay, thank you.
Floyd was the first, Kiefer was the second. All yes, Mr. Burdette no. Item number 12, consideration to approve the first reading of ordinance to amend Appendix C, Article 7, Planning Board, Section 7.1.2, meeting of Effingham County Code of Ordinances.
So we've been discussing
Welcome to Zoom.
for a while
Enter your
now
meeting
the option of decreasing the amount of time that it takes to get a project rezoned or get
That's
variance. Given that we do have advertising requirements under the Zoning Procedures Act, the only place
Can
we
you speak a
really,
little closer to the mic? I'm having a hard time hearing that for whatever reason.
the Georgia Zoning Procedures Act does require that we meet advertising requirements 15 to 45 days in advance of the public hearing. And because our local newspaper publishes 1 day per week, it really creates a kind of a front end time gap that we really can't overcome. But at the back end, between the planning board meeting, which currently is the 4th Monday of the month, and then the next available Board of Commissioners meeting, and by available, I mean getting the staff reports turned around and into the clerk, it's this almost month-long wait. So the only way to shorten that and bring planning board items to the first Board of Commissioners meeting of the month is to push back to bring forward the planning board meeting just by 1 week. We think, I've worked with the calendar, we think that will allow enough time to turn around staff reports, but it will shorten by 2 weeks the entire time for every application. And sometimes we do expedite applications and bring it to the first board meeting of the month if there's a closing or something like that. But in this case, it'll be a standard that every planning board item can come to the very next Board of Commissioners meeting. So, and the only change required is to change the planning board meeting day, and that is dictated by ordinance, that'd be the 4th Monday. So the only change is to change that to the 3rd Monday. The planning board is agreeable to it. We've looked, as I said, staff has looked at the calendar, we've worked it out for the next year or so. We think we can make it
I
work.
think 3rd Monday gives you more time to get it to our second meeting of the next month. We want to make development easier when it's appropriate.
Would this allow to be the first meeting?
It'll be the first meeting, yeah.
We're going to have the first
It'll be
meeting.
the first meeting, yeah.
So to rotate our planning board
So our planning board sessions will be on the first meeting, not second.
Yes, I mean, the alternative would have been keep it on the second meeting of the month, and then we would shift the planning board to, I guess, the first Monday. So it's really kind of your call if
So
you,
you have about 2 week turnaround just about.
yeah.
By the
It-
time they,
The only question would be is, do we want to keep our planning board things we vote on the second meeting and not the first meeting? By doing what they're doing is going to expedite the whole process. That's
Right. We should be able to do it on the first meeting of the month. Our planning sessions, periods, I'm sure.
Yes, so it will be a change for you all. If you want to keep things on the second meeting,
The first meeting of the month, it's small.
Yeah, I don't think it matters to us.
It doesn't
whether
make
it's the
a
first or third.
difference. All right, any other questions or discussion? So we're approving the reading of the ordinance, that's alternative one, motion for alternative one.
Make a motion to table alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Loper to approve alternative one, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it passes unanimously. Then we get our 12th item, additional agenda item, which is consideration to approve the revised intergovernmental agreement between Effingham County and the cities of Springfield, Dayton, and Lincoln related to the upcoming special purpose local option sales tax referendum. I think you can do a packet with the many documents in them. I'm going to file that. If you need a minute to refresh your, the amendments are really small. You want to address those? It was just some small things the cities wanted.
There was, I can address them. There was a couple of items that were simply just grammatical errors that were corrected, and then there was a numerical error that was corrected in one spot but not the other. And so that is one change from, I think, what you have is on page
On page 6.
6? Is on page 6, you'll see that there is a chart or table on the bottom that shows project county municipality, and it shows Effingham County's number is 47,622,400.
That's what it's going to.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It says 622,933, and it should be 47,622,400. And so that way, everything equals out to 64 million at the bottom.
Our copies, this is the correct copy, right?
Yeah, I think.
Yours is the amended copy. That's right.
Okay, all right, so you have it, all right. And then addendum F has been added, and that is the wording of the referendum.
That's right.
That is, and I don't know if that was in the original pack, but that's just a requirement of the IGA. This, with the exception of that calculation error, is exactly what all three municipalities have approved. So this will allow this to move forward after we pass the call for referendum, which is the next item on the, or the,
Under the old business.
under the old business, second item under old business.
And we're still taking 20% of tier 2
That's correct.
projects.
And so the 47,622,400 is the unincorporated portion of that based on population. And that also is based on the previous census numbers in 2010, which we're not going to use, but we have to have those numbers in there for the referendum. The new numbers have come out, except we were in the process of proving this with the cities when those numbers came out. So we're just going to use the old numbers and switch them for implementation.
And we're not using language like tier 2, we're using kind of like project language in this.
What's that?
We're not using tier 2 language, we're using kind of like project language.
That's right, and so we don't refer to it as tier 2, we just refer to them as countywide projects, and the reason being is tier 2 is only kind of can be a confusing language on a referendum, and it really is only used when there is not an IGA, and we have an IGA. So I think people have a clearer understanding of what a countywide project is versus a tier 2 or level 2 project.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I was just driving that hole for the record. 40% did change.
still there. Although is it limited to the 16 million, the countywide projects, does it have a cap on it, 16 million?
Well, it's got a cap on it, 60 million. It's going to be 16 million because essentially the first, and it has a number, you know, roughly the first.
The reason I bring that up is not getting details, just, Mr. Loach, what he's asking is that, I'm not sure it's necessarily 20, we took 20% of what projected to be, and we used that 16 million, and we locked it into the 16 million.
That's right.
If we got more, we wouldn't get 20%. But if we get a little bit less, we still get the 16.
We still get the 16 million.
So they could be 18 or 22%. They could be 18% or 22%.
That's right, that's right. We're gonna get 16 million, which is 20% of the projected revenues. So it was good for the whole county, I think, to have the countywide projects and put that money toward something that affects all our constituents, city and municipal and county and corporate.
That's right. I think the cities really just wanted to see a more detailed list of the projects. We gave them those and they were all agreeable. They've all voted for this. So. And we, as a bonus, we got an extra 6th year out of it, which we wouldn't have got had they not agreed to the IGA.
So we have a way for the constituents to hopefully support this referendum that will provide the resources we need.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the amended IGA in support of the sale tax resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended IGA.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Loach, second by Mr. Whitman, to approve the amended IGA for the upcoming special purpose local option sales tax referendum. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Passes unanimously. All right, now we'll go to our old business. Getting laid on the table earlier, we can address the item there. Item number 1 is consideration to approve a tax refund request submitted by Jacqueline Skay related to property located at 105 Cooley Trail, United Net number 2778, parcel number 43.
Yeah, and after the meeting, I spoke with Lee Newberry about this, and I did look at the plat. The most recent plat recorded on file, it clearly stated that this property was 5.75 acres, and for some reason in our system, we had them charged with 7.5. Not sure how that occurred. It occurred back in 2006. Lee asked me, had the taxpayer ever filed a tax return? I said no. They did not appeal the property. We did. By the state of Georgia, Board of Assessors can only refund an error back 3 years. So we did refund Mrs. Skay back 3 years, but beyond that, we don't have the ability to do.
Right, and I believe we asked our attorney to check and see if we had the authority to refund anything past 18, 19, and 20 that was funded, and I think attorney spoke to you.
He sent an email, since he couldn't be here tonight, and it's, I'll just read it out to you. It says, as a government body, the county is entitled to basically sovereign immunity. It's not subject to suit. The statute in this case, section 48.5-380B, provides 3-year deadline for filing to claim a refund with the county government authority, and we are limited by that statute.
So my understanding in talking with our managers, the county attorney is saying we do not have the authority to go against the state statute that only allows 3 years of refund.
That's correct.
So I think it's out of our hands as far as being able to provide additional refund. It'd be the tax owner's property rights to file the appropriate, to look at it, file appropriate appeals or whatever.
That's correct. Or they could have.
And the state statute does not give us the authority to go back.
That's right, and we do include our acreage on the assessment notice, so they were made aware. They didn't catch the error, nor did we until recently.
I
So
would love to entertain a motion to approve, but that would put us outside of the law. I don't think we want to do that. So the recommendation providing our staff is to, tax assessors to deny, so I entertain a motion to deny the refund beyond the 3 years.
I make a motion to approve alternative ones, do not approve the refund past 2018.
Motion, alternative one by Mr. Burdette, and a second.
Okay.
There was one.
This one.
Okay, I'm sorry. I read it back.
You have a question?
Yeah, I got it.
You have a second?
I second.
Second by Mr. Loper. All in favor of approving alternative one, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it is not. I think we all wish we could do it, but hands like that, we'd like to consider it, but just, want to start going against the law. That
Good points both ways, you know, it's our mistake, they've already refunded her 3 years.
All right, item number 2, we can take up now, consideration to approve a resolution number 21-839 for a call for referendum regarding the reimposition of the countywide special purpose local option sales tax clause.
This is the process now that we have the IGA approved to initiate the referendum. Once this, and if this is approved by the board, it gets sent to the supervisor of elections, who then submits it to the Secretary of State to get on the November ballot.
Any questions or discussion from the board? We cannot promote it, encourage so much, but we have to recognize that there's a lot of projects in here that will really advance the county, getting ahead of infrastructure. Very crucial.
It's important, this isn't an additional, this is just a continuation of an
Just a
existing.
continuation of additional tax that allows us, and once again, I'll say again, like the 25th, based on the last census, on the new census is showing that we were the 25th, something like the fastest growing county in the country, not the state. So this continuation of this tax is instrumental to county continue to keep taxes low and continue to meet infrastructure needs. Should have said that earlier. I invite people to look at the surrounding coastal areas and look at the countywide millage rate. I may be wrong, but I believe we have the lowest county millage rate of all the coastal regional counties. 7.3 something the other year.
And it depends what Bryan County does, but we might even be lower than them this year. They were a hair lower than us last year.
Somebody was at Rocky, we were here higher at one time. But
Yeah, but all the other ones, it's not even close.
we wrote ours back.
Yeah.
Some kind of information out there, they always get grilled that we have the highest taxes around, and we're terrible.
That's just a general response.
I just want us, because I hear you say that, but I mean, can we ever put that in,
Yeah. We need to look at it.
put it in the story, or?
With this resolution, we passed down the levy, we need to look at advertising that, even maybe some comparison with some, the one we control, the county M&O, and the special circuit, that's what we control. The school is probably comparable, I've looked at to other areas, but we would argue that we have the best schools and about the same tax rate as other areas. So obviously our school system's spending pretty darn well. So, but yeah, let's put, I need help with that, I need help with that, put out some information, some comparatives in the schedule. Great. All right, we have a motion to approve alternative one.
Make a motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lope, second Mr. Loper, to approve alternative one to continue the local option, special local option sales tax. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it will be on to the next ballot. All right, that concludes, I believe, our business. We've got just a few minutes. Do we want to take a quick break, or do we want to do some administrative reports? We don't have much public hearing tonight, so why don't we push through for just a minute? Is that okay?
What's that?
Why don't we just push through so it's not having any public hearings tonight?
Okay.
And I'll go over to our county manager. I think you want to address a couple of letters that they need to support.
Correct. And some of our, a partner, the Manor House and the American Second Harvest, has requested that that the chairman signed a letter of support for their organization since they are applying for ARPA funds.
And they do a wonderful work.
Yeah. It is not something that puts any obligation to the county, but I just wanted to address this and a similar request by the city of Springfield for an ARPA request that they're doing with regards to
Big sewer down.
sewer to the Ebenezer Retreat area. They're just generally letters in support of their organizations, their efforts. And I was, without any objection, I was just going to have the chairman sign them and send it to
If
them.
there's any objection to me signing those letters, say we support them, these endeavors. Okay. I'll sign those, we'll get them off and support our communities. Any other items you want to address?
Yeah, I did want to just give you an update on COVID and what we're doing. We're actually starting to see numbers begin to climb. Again, they've started to stabilize, but I think this is best shown on the chart. And this is our 7-day rolling average, and we began to see a little bit of a peak towards the end of, a little bit of an upswing in the middle of July, but it was still nowhere near what our peak was when we had our surge in January. Over last weekend, it just started to jump basically exponentially to the point where we are, when we were at our high during the surge, we were at 35.6, which is our average cases per day over a 7-day period. We're now at 60, basically close to 63. And it's from our conversations today, it does not appear that it's slowing. Most of the calls that we have with EMS are respiratory related. And so we're trying to take measures that we can, but also keep in mind that we're almost double where we were at the peak prior to vaccination. And a vast majority of these cases here that gives us this new peak are folks who are not vaccinated. So when you take those folks who are vaccinated out of the equation and try to do an apples-to-apples comparison at where we were in January, this probably would be about 30 to 40% higher. So we're clearly seeing this. It's not just us, it's every county in the coastal region, probably the state. I've only been monitoring the coastal region. But this is what we're keeping an eye on. There may be some resource requests that we have as a result on this. The hospital has asked through the county for some resource requests, which I'll let you all know about. With regards to staffing, supplies, and security, because folks are starting to get a little bit aggravated at the wait times, not being able to be served, but there just is not capacity at any of our hospitals, whether it's Bullock, Chatham, or Effingham. So I just wanted to give you an update on where we were, what we were looking at, and kind of how we based the decision. We are, as an employer, we are still seeing a lot of cases of employees being out by limiting contact between buildings. And saying that if you work in building A and you want to have a meeting with someone in building B, you're going to have to do that via video conference. And the reason is if we have an outbreak in A, we can shut down A and not have to shut down any of the other buildings. So we're trying to take steps. We'll continue to monitor this, but this is certainly more severe than what we've seen so far. Lastly, I just wanted to bring up the census, since we did talk about SPLOST. We went up 20, the numbers finally came out. The county's population jumped 24% since 2010 to 64,769. The unincorporated saw a increase that was above the county average. So when it comes to things like T-SPLOST and SPLOST, which are distributed based on the percentage of total population in the unincorporated area, we will see an increase in both of those by 1 entire percent, which over a 5-year period is probably for roads and SPLOST will probably equal about $1 million. So.
Tim, going back to the COVID thing, or if anybody has any ideas of how we can get more information out to the public, you know what I'm seeing, and I don't mean to stick in the mud on the sandwich thing. Everywhere I go, people act like there's nothing going on. Nobody's wearing masks, there's nobody social distancing. Even in my church, it's business as usual, and we're seeing this thing in our own county. You know, it's one thing to see statistics in the U.S., it's another thing to see stuff going on around us. I've had it in my office, which is a very small office, and it's to a greater degree than I've ever seen around us right now. And it just seems like our county doesn't really know. I mean, they're ignoring, I don't know what it is.
I think they know, they just don't trust.
Maybe they don't trust it or whatever.
Everybody's saturated,
Yeah.
tired of dealing. I mean,
Maybe that's what it is. That's what I'm saying. It makes me nervous because, people are dying, people are sick.
Well, we did 2 press releases last week. I did an interview last week on it. So we're constantly putting this data out on what limited media resources we have.
It's wonderful it's getting out to people. They realize the
Yeah, and I think what's going to happen, it is having some positive effect, because one number I didn't show you was we're starting to see a clear and steady increase in what, the folks who've gotten the first vaccination shot. And, those have gone up about, about 10% from where they were. So in a week's time. So, that's really the message that we can get out to folks is, here's the resources, here's where to find them, and we're working with DPH to have a kind of a rotating testing site for them in the county a few days a week, and then also I think in Bryan County the other days of the week. So we're trying to get it out there.
I think people are aware, it's just, because I know people now that are getting the vaccine that before decided not to. So, I mean, I think it's out there for people's just trying to live their lives.
Yeah, and I get that.
I think most people, they've got to hear from a trusted source, whether it's a family member that works in the field, they've got to hear from a very personal.
I've got a couple of friends that
They just don't trust the TV.
don't trust it, and now their life's fighting for their life in the hospital. And that's what I'm seeing.
I don't know what we can do to make any, convince anybody. I mean,
That's
that's
something that happens.
They're watching the news at all, they see that there's a huge spike, and we put some releases out there, and Mike can answer these questions better, but when I'm seeing, if you're vaccinated, for the most part, it's like a very severe cold. Am I saying something wrong there? Correct me if I am.
In most cases.
There's a few anomalies to that situation, but most of what, 75% of what you're seeing that spike is probably the unvaccinated. And I think the deaths are down overall, like on countrywide, from what I've seen in the news.
Let's hear it.
Here we go.
Here we got it.
Yeah, Clint Hodges, Fire Chief EMA Director. Statistically, the vaccine has shown that it's the number of deaths and the severity of the outbreaks are significantly decreased based on the data that we see right now. So yeah, we're definitely pushing as many people to get the vaccine as possible because, like for example, I have family in the healthcare field that provide me personal data, and the majority of what they're seeing as far as the bad cases are unvaccinated.
Are unvaccinated?
Yes.
Right, that's kind of what I was alluding to. That may be the people you see that are trying to continue on, they've been vaccinated, they want to be normal. And get that. At the same time, we're going to try to protect each other.
What's our vaccination rate in Effingham County?
Fully vaccinated is right at 35%.
That's not good.
which is,
But that doesn't consider the ones who have antibodies and who've had COVID. We may be at 50, 60% or higher.
That doesn't mean you can't get a deal with the very.
If you get all those who have,
as far as the antibodies, I don't have any specific data on that.
and the government's not.
But I will say there has been an increase in the number of people getting the first vaccination within the past few weeks.
One statistic I want to share, that's the physicians in the U.S. are like between 94 and 96% vaccinated. I think they know more about this virus than the rest. That's to tell me.
I'll tell you something, physicians, I've had my vaccination, and I'm glad I did.
Like, it's high, I think 96%, but it's, that tells me a lot right there.
Thank you, Ken, I appreciate it. All right, I'm gonna pause on the administrative reports, and we're gonna move into our public hearings for those people who have come to those hearings tonight, because we are almost 2 minutes after 6 o'clock. So we're going to go to our planning board public hearings. Ms. Tracy, you ready? Okay, number 1 is the planning board recommends approving an application by Kathy Sherrouse for a variance located at 1882 Noel C. Conway Road to waive the 3 acre minimum requirement for a rural business use. This is map number 398A, parcel number 49, the second district.
So Mr. Rouse approached us for a business license, and so we investigated a little bit and found out that what she wanted to do was a sole floral arranging business. And given that her property is zoned AR1, we immediately thought of a rural business, so then could authorize a business license. However, and that will work, except that she's not meeting the 3 acre minimum requirement for a rural business. So the first of 2 applications on her behalf are, the first one is a variance from that 3 acre minimum requirement for a rural business, because what she intends to do is this silk floral arranging business in a small accessory building on her parcel. It's about 1.5 acres, so there's plenty of room for what she intends to do. There's no impact on neighbors, there won't be customers arriving. She simply wants to not use her house, but use an
Since
accessory
the board
building.
approves this variance, it's just for her business,
It's just for her business, it's only for her business. So in order to go to the actual rural business request, we need to get a variance from that 3 acre minimum requirement.
Staff recommend approval of variance. Okay. Staff recommend approval, open a public hearing, anyone not speaking against the board providing this variance, less than 3 acres for this rural business. Anyone speaking for or against? See no one speaking for or against this variance, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion from the board.
I just have one question.
Okay?
Probably won't have any effect on the way I go with this thing, but how does she get customers to buy? Because I couldn't find the website. So if they don't come on site, how are they buying the product?
I don't have that information. I don't know, listen to the application.
She could do it at wholesale for another vendor.
Yeah, well, I saw the reviews over to individuals.
On Facebook.
Facebook?
I've seen her advertise on Facebook.
I was curious, I wonder if they're not going to show up, how are they doing this?
She advertises on Facebook and sometimes, and most of the time she meets them somewhere other than her home.
I got you.
And I don't know her
I'm just
agency.
going to note for the record that a constituent mentioned in the back that it might be for Facebook.
I'll buy that, that's good.
All right. Entertain a motion.
Yeah, I entertain a motion approval for alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second Mr. Floyd for alternative 1. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. It passes unanimously. Item number 2 is the second reading. Consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Kathy Sherrouse for a variance located at 1882 Noel C. Conway Road to waive the 3 acre minimum requirement for a rural business use map number 398A, parcel number 49 in the second district.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second Mr. Floyd to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. And that carries unanimously. Item number 3 in the public hearings, the planning board recommends approving an application by Kathy Sherrouse for a conditional use for a rural business located at 1882 Noel C. Conway Road to allow for a silk floral arrangement business map number 398A, parcel number 49 in the second district.
So this is the actual rural business request, conditional use application, and as I mentioned, it's a silk floor arranging business as we run, it's advertised on Facebook and other social media probably. The intent is to use the accessory building on the property. From what we understand, there'll be no foot traffic, no visitors. It's really just intent. She doesn't want to use her home. She wants to use an accessory building, so we couldn't do a home occupation for her business license. We had to take her to this next step, and that staff is recommending approval.
All right, anyone tonight, open a public hearing, anyone speaking for or against this rural business conditional use? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing, entertain a motion.
Motion to approve alternative one.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Barrett, second by Mr. Kiefer to approve alternative one. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. And it passes unanimously. The second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Kathy Schurouse for conditional use for a rural business located at 1882 Noblesville Conway Road to operate a silk floor arranging business, map number 398A, parcel number 49, second district. Motion.
Motion to approve second reading. Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second Mr. Floyd to approve the second reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The second reading passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I want to recuse myself from the next.
Dr. Mayor, Mr. Lopez recused himself of this next item.
Pardon?
Why?
What might recuse himself?
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. Okay. Thanks, sir. All right, item number 5, public hearing. The planning board recommends approving an application by Allen Land Investors LLC to rezone 5.50 acres located on Early Street from AR1 to R1, map number 388, parcel number 4 in the 4th district.
This parcel is currently zoned AR1, and it is right at the edge of the Springfield city limits. The red arrow there points to the parcel in question, and that yellow line is Springfield. Next to it is Hawkham Subdivision, which is in that pink, it's zone R3, but it has been developed as a single-family subdivision. So the request is to rezone that 5.5 acre parcel to R1 to allow subdivision into possibly 5, although the applicant did mention potentially 6 lots. At this time, this is just a rezoning application. We're not looking at a sketch plan. This is a pre-sketch plan, concept plan, just to give us an idea of what it is that they were thinking of. If approved, we would require a sketch plan pre-application meeting so that we could go over any ordinance requirements and make sure that the sketch plan, when it came before you, met all of our requirements and addressed any concerns you might have. So this proposed concept has frontage on Early Street for 2 of the parcels, and the remaining 3 will be accessed by an easement. And this, again, is a concept plan. We're not sure what the final will look like.
Just for information for the public hearing, what's the smallest acreage on the lot and what's the largest acreage?
I think it's half an acre.
It's the smallest and what's the largest?
Yeah, so R1, yes, because they're proposing to access Springfield, City of Springfield water and private sewer. Although I think the applicant did mention if they could get sewer, they might go for that too. So it's kind of a matter of what we can access and what works with this business plan. So I believe it was half acre up to about 1.5 acres, the current configuration.
Yeah, one of those lots is bigger, looks 3 times as big as that, which will be 1.5 acres, that's right. Okay. All right, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone tonight speaking for this rezoning from AR1 to R1? Anyone speaking for this rezoning?
You're not.
Evening, I'm Keith Johnson, representing Mr. Burns. He was detained, and if y'all, like I said, this is just rezoning, and we will, you know, when it comes down to it, we'll abide by whatever sort of regulations we have to do. Had any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer.
Okay, there may be some. Thank you, sir. Anyone else speaking for? Anyone tonight wanting to speak against this rezoning from AR1 to R1? You just come up to the microphone and state your name for the record and what your objection might be.
I live on Early Street, right across the street.
If you can give us your name first.
Kathy Gentry,
Okay.
151 Early Street. Obviously, we had an awful lot of input last week of people against this, which none of that was taken into consideration, and the commission just passed everything. And by what you're saying that you already recommend it be passed, means you've already spoken about it and you've already agreed that you're going to, I mean, there's no sense us fighting anymore because you're going to not take anything we say into consideration.
No, ma'am, we have not discussed this as a board and have not.
But on the agenda, it says you're recommending approval.
The staff has recommended to us. This is your public hearing.
Oh, okay.
Tell us why we should ignore the recommendation of the planning board or the recommendation of our staff. We haven't spoken with the developer, we haven't spoken with our staff regarding this. That's their report to us.
Okay.
We have reviewed their packets. This is your moment to share with us something maybe we don't know or they don't know.
Okay. Well, obviously, I'm against it. I think they're Keith had mentioned, putting in just 1,200 square foot houses, which are tiny, because I live in a 1,200 and it's tiny, but I'm only one person, I'm not a family, or two people.
You live in a 1,200 square foot house now?
Yes.
In Hawkham?
No, I'm right across the street from this.
Okay.
So their driveways are gonna, headlights are coming into my house.
I got you. Okay.
And traffic and everything else. My next door neighbors didn't come because they thought it was fruitless. They're in their 90s and they had bought their house because of the trees. And now all the trees are gone and it's a swamp. Keith had mentioned that he did a test that he wanted to put in septic, not sewer. That was new, what we just heard about the sewer and connecting to the city. I asked that before anything gets approved, that let the residents of Hawk Hammock and myself and my neighbors have an independent perk test that we will pay for because we really feel it's going to flood.
Well, let me try to address what your question is there. Anything that they come up with has to go through soil and water. They cannot move water off that property to anybody else's property any faster than it is right now. So that's not in a question tonight about soil and water. They may not be able to thing if it doesn't hold the soil, doesn't do the perk test and so forth. So we're not proving they can build. This is for a zoning. Does this zoning match the area?
Okay.
That's all we can address tonight.
So AR1 means it can go from one house to 6 houses by changing the zoning.
I think, let's clarify that. AR1, I mean R1. Allows up to 3 per acre. And they're doing 6 and 5 acres, so they're not even doing that.
And if you look at it, there's a bunch of that land that can't be built on because that is a swamp.
They got to come back and come with a plan for our staff to review them.
Okay, that was supposed to be available tonight.
They may not be building one house on that 5 acres if the property doesn't hold it. Question tonight for us and the objection to the zoning of R1, which allows up to 3. And I think, I don't know where you're at now, but it sounds like you're kind of the same zoning. Hawk Hammock, I believe, is R3, which is multifamily. So we're just looking at the zoning tonight, is it?
Well, I say keep it A1. That's my vote. Keep it A1.
Yeah. Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Anyone else tonight speak objection? Well, we need to know a specific reason why we would want to oppose the planning board or the staff when the zoning around it is pretty much even a higher density zoning.
My name is Rebecca Wasson. I live at 170 Hawk Hammock Drive. I am the first red line that butts up against the yellow. So when you come past them, I am the first driveway. My property is basically, if you drew a straight line from the back of my property over to the 2 acres at the front that's not part of this, that is what butts up against my property. I'm the only house in Hawk Hammock that is not in a flood zone. I'm the only house that does not have to require flood insurance by a mortgage company. They went in and cut, which I know it is their legal right to cut because they own the property. But since they have done that, and I brought my phone up, I tried to email to the planning, the young lady had given me several email addresses, but since they just cut the trees, we're not even talking about building up to build houses. Since they just cut the trees, my landscape yard that is not in a flood zone, when it rains, whether it has been raining for days, which it hasn't been, it rained today for about 20 minutes, about 20 minutes today, and the lake is there. And where before, if the table was high or we had had a lot of rain for days on end, we would, if it came down hard and fast like it sometimes does, or if it was super dry and it comes down hard and fast, there might be water that would stand in a spot here or there until it stopped raining and then it was gone within 15 minutes. The last time it rained, I didn't get pictures today. I wasn't at home. My husband was, and he does have a picture on his phone. I have pictures from the last time when it rained. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it rained hard and fast, but it wasn't even an inch or two. I mean, but it was just hard and fast. When I got home, there was the lake in my side yard that has never been there before. I took pictures of it, and I kept going back outside until it got dark, and that water was still standing there. Now, that's without them building up anything. That's just because they cut all the trees down, and it's not absorbing the water. If any of you have ever been in Hawk Hammock, you know that the lots in Hawk Hammock start at my size lot is 1.26 acres and goes up. Some of them have several acres. Hawk Hammock backs up to the creek. The last time there was a flood where houses actually flooded in there, virtually all of them flooded because the back of those lots are low. There's the creek that comes in off Early Street, and then the other creek that comes in off 119. Can't think of their names because I'm nervous. And they meet at the back of Hawk Hammock, and then they go down and form Ebenezer Creek at Stillwell Road. So yes, the backs of the lots that front that are low. There's nothing that can be done about it. It's low. The creeks, when it rains, they rise up. Years ago, another neighbor who used to be a county commissioner actually cut timber on his land on the other side of Hawk Hammock. Mr. House cut about 13 acres of timber. He has subsequently sold the house, but he kept the land. He recently sold the house. He had a hard time selling it because of this. But because he cut all that timber down in that swamp area, when it rains, it's a pond. A friend of my daughter, who is a teacher, was looking at the house to buy, thought it was on a lake. I have neighbors in Hawk Hammock who have paid $10,000 and $12,000 to build a wall to keep their yard from falling in. My point is, it's low. I asked at the last meeting, at the zoning meeting, for them to just ride out there, just take a look. If you don't want to pull up your own maps on the GIS site and look at the flood zones, call an insurance agent. They'll be more than happy to tell you the flood zones, the elevations. The flood maps show the elevations of a majority of that property, except for that one lot that's beside my house.
Right. So you kind of somebody's concerned is
my concern is it's going to be a swamp. Number one, it is a swamp. It is already a swamp. I want to know, and perhaps y'all can ask Mr. Burns when he gets here, or Mr. Johnson. I was told that by a young lady or someone that spoke last time that he cannot force the water he cannot allow the water onto other people's property when he builds it up, which he will have to do, and they know this. So where is that water going to go? If it's not going to go on my property.
If I can interrupt you for a minute, I got your concern is that it's a flood zone already. When it rains, it can create water for other people's properties, and that's the reason we'd like to see us deny that.
Well, and other too.
Others as well. Ms. Tracy, you want to respond to the idea of the water from that property to other property and what's future and how it relates to what we're doing now?
Right, so this is the rezoning, and if this were to be approved, the applicant would come back with a sketch plan, which is a little more detailed, tells us exactly what he intends to do, whether it be 5 lots or he mentioned possibly 6. But in any case, he would come back with more information, and then we would, myself, the county engineer, would sit down with him and discuss what applicable ordinances and how they would be implemented, including the site development planning. So right now, it is a cut, let's see. The one showing the lots was right when we received the application. These are more recent in the past week or so I wrote out there. And that one there with the fence, that's the view from Hawk Hammock, so it does, a portion of the parcel does come right up to Hawk Hammock. So this is over 5 acres, this is over 1 acre, so it will have to, the applicant will have to apply for a land disturbance permit, and that will involve erosion and sedimentation and pollution control plans that our engineers review, and they will have, they will consider any stormwater retention plans in that as well. So this isn't anywhere near a plan to build houses yet. This is, first of all, just the rezoning, and I say just because it's the first step in what could be a long process. The next step is the sketch plan, where we work with the applicant to ensure that everything meets requirements and meets their needs. And then after that, our engineers would review any plans for the subdivision. Because it's 5 or possibly 6 parcels, it is a major subdivision.
Right.
I mean, it's a huge major subdivision, but it is a major, it's past that 3 mark. So it will go for review, will go for state review for the clearing of 5 acres of land and for any grading that would take place. So, we're going to look at stormwater, we're going to look at pre-construction stormwater flow rates and post-construction, proposed
And
post-construction.
stormwater looks at the 100-year range, like we have a flood that's happening in my place, probably in Hawk Hammock. It looks at those conditions as well. That's one of the things it does.
I would defer to the engineer on what the review actually involves, because he's actually done a review.
Can you help us with that, Eric? I mean, I don't
Need to go to the mic just to say Teresa said it right.
Yeah, and I just want to try to answer some of the questions that she had. That if the zoning was approved tonight, it goes through a land application permit, which is going to look at the soil, the water. You're going to do all the calculations to see how it's moving. These are things that probably were not done even when Hawk Hammock was built many, many years ago. That we have in place now to protect property owners around. And that will have to get through a stringent land application. Our engineers with design retention or retention possibly before the site plan would ever be approved.
But I'm trying to save you money by pointing out these things to you, so you won't, it's our money.
No, it's going to be their money. They got to pay for all that.
I hope.
We don't pay for any of that. We make them do the research, the work.
Hey, they're going to cost me money in the long run, so let them do it. Let them pay for it.
Do you want to address with that? Say it right?
Yes, sir. Between you and Teresa, I don't need to say anything. There will be a drainage plan that will have to get submitted with the final, after the sketch plan's approved. Because of the number of lots and the size of the property, it requires a stormwater management, even if there's not any infrastructure of a road being built. It's still going to require stormwater management for the lots. And as you correctly said, we look at runoff rates, we look at runoff volume, and we look at water quality. So all those things come with a stormwater design that we'll get after the sketch plan's approved.
Okay. All right, and I did want to point out that there's a lot less people here now than there were at the Planning Commission, but I did speak to several of them. Most of them feel that this is a done deal. They felt like it was a done deal in front of the Planning Commission, so they weren't going to waste their time. However, they want to make sure that y'all know and that the developers know that we are all 100% against it, all of us in Hawk Hammock. They have brought some of these things to my attention in order to bring them to your attention. At the last, okay, I already asked that one and he answered that one. At the last meeting, it was also brought up, per the county GIS website, it shows that there are wetlands. Mr. Johnson told at the last meeting that they had hired an engineer to go out, and that engineer that they paid said that there were no wetlands on that property. And so that was a non-issue. A call to the Corps of Engineers, the Corps of Engineers are not aware that it's no longer wetlands. So what is the situation when that occurs?
I don't want to cut you off, but we need to stay on the focus here. The wetlands and all that's going to be considered in the permit application. If we find, because we're going to go with the Corps of engineers, and these, our engineers are good, they're going to look at all that. So regardless of what the developer does, we're going to take an independent look at all the wetlands and so forth. What we're looking for tonight is.
But if you don't rezone it, we don't have to waste our time.
But we cannot, this is what the chairman's going to tell you, I'm not sure what the board's going to say, but we're not going to deny a person to do with their property if it fits the area. Now, they have to meet I hear your complaints about the water. That's what we can control. We can make sure that they build this, if they build it at all, whether it's 1 house or 5 acres from the sketch plan, that it complies with all the state and our ordinances for the water, clean water, good water, and no more short drainage going off to anybody else's property. Those things we can do.
Okay, all right, so that took care of 3 questions that I don't have to ask you then. Okay, so then the next question comes to just that. These are 1,200 square foot houses, starter houses. Even a lady that lives across the street and the other two families that live across the street that live in 1,200 square foot half-acre starter houses are against this. How do you think that people who have worked, and we are in our 60s now, and we're wanting to retire, and we have purchased property that we thought we could live forever until we die, and it was going to be our inheritance to our children because of the property values. And now, between the 33 homes that are in Hawk Hammock, I've heard from 2 different people that sat down and figured out the negative impact of building 1,200 square foot builder grade houses, what it will have on half-acre lots. Even if it's an acre, if it's a swamp, it doesn't count. But even on half-acre lots, it is going to destroy our property values. It is going to, some of those houses in Hawk Hammock are appraised for over $400,000 as we speak. Mine is not. I'm lucky. I have one of the smaller houses in the neighborhood. I did it right. I bought the smallest house in the nice neighborhood.
How much is your house?
My house is $1,750. But it's still bigger than, and it's not builder grade, it's upgraded with.
So the objection is.
So mine is, it does not fit the neighborhood that it is touching.
But I think we're not able to determine the size of property on houses. I don't think that's a parameter that we can do. We can only address the zoning.
But if the zoning is going to be smaller lots, then what is in the, if only one of them, which is equal to my size lot, that is the biggest lot. If only one of them and the rest of them are smaller, then that does not fit the neighborhood that it touches. So that is not the appropriate zoning, in my opinion, the way I feel about it.
Flooding and the size of the houses are the concerns that you're looking for.
Yes.
Is another concern that we need to give other people a chance to speak.
Yeah, and then, well, I'm speaking for about 6 people here. And then the only other comment that I wanted to make that one of the ladies that lives across the street from me asked me to say was that at the last meeting, the zoning board sat patiently and listened and had not a single discussion. They discussed nothing. As soon as everybody sat down, they voted. They voted to go with the approval. They did not even give us the courtesy of pretending to care or to be concerned. And I would just hope that as y'all just had a discussion of things that impact this county, I would hope that y'all would at least show some courtesy and at least pretend, even if you don't care, if it doesn't matter, if you're going to vote for it anyway.
Right there. We do care, we don't pretend, we do our practice and review.
And then the other thing I wanted to say, and this was from a lady that lives at the total opposite end of Hawk Hammock, was that the reason she did not come to this meeting.
I need to know what her objections are, man. We need to move on.
Okay.
What's her objection? Not why she didn't.
Her objection is the population increase that we've experienced that was also brought up, as well as all the voting for all of the warehousing things that have been going on that has been voted in, has not been approved based on improving infrastructure. So while this is only a 5 or 6 home development. When you add the 2 cars to that with all the other issues that have been approved by this commission, we are losing what makes northern Effingham County the great community to live in.
Okay, thank you so much. Does anyone else want to speak against this rezoning tonight? And if you're related to flooding or size of the houses, I ask you to come up with another, just say, I agree with those 2 things she made, and what's the additional objections?
I just got a quick question on, the engineer spoke about the elevations and such that will be addressed when they look at the plan for the community. But I got one question. It's just in the Code of Ordinance, section 716, trees. It says, as many trees as possible shall remain on the site during the initial clearing and grading, and all healthy trees as determined by an arborist or other tree professional having a trunk diameter of 6 inches or more measured 4 feet above the ground shall remain unless they lie within a planned public right-of-way, within a planned building site, or within the necessary paved areas surrounding or adjacent to the primary structure. So I know we're here for rezoning, but as you can see in the pictures, they've already cut all the trees down, and I was wondering if this part of the ordinance was already discussed, looked at, reviewed, or will it be done in the future?
Are you asking, is that a violation of that ordinance?
Yes.
Can you address that for me now?
When we receive timber permit applications, the county really doesn't have any jurisdiction to dictate terms. It's more of a state permit. So for cutting trees, I mean, yes, that's in our ordinance, but for any other residential development, we've never been able to dictate what happens with the trees. This site is cleared. The trees have been removed. There no land disturbance has happened yet. No permit's been applied for. This is commonly how development has been happening. Trees are removed.
What's that ordinance? Why is that ordinance on the books if we can't restrict people from the size trees that cut? I'm not part of this.
This state oversees, the state jurisdiction over.
Is that a local ordinance or state ordinance?
I mean, I'm assuming that's.
It's the Effingham County Code of Ordinance.
Yeah.
Well, my guess is on this is that you're talking about 2 different steps, which is often happens with the development of a property. They are issuing a timber permit to remove, which they can not as part of development of the property prior to the development of the property, which often happens. A owner will timber the property before he sells it to somebody. And then that portion of the ordinance really relates to the subdivision and development of the property, which happens after. So
if you come to us with to develop a major subdivision, 3 more lots, then that ordinance would apply for that timber on that property at that time.
That's correct. We'd have to try and adhere to at least the spirit of that ordinance had they not cleared it prior to applying for the subdivision and the sketch plan and so on and so forth. But since they did it in advance of it, they're subject only to the timber permit.
It sounds like this is a way that developers can get around complying with that ordinance to me. I mean, do we not need to look at that workshop coming up, and I'll tell you anything wrong with this, a way to come up with if timber is cut within 2 to 3 years or some provision of time before, and then you come back for development, that there's some required revegetation that an ordinance requires. You know what I'm saying? If we're gonna
Why are we telling people they can't cut trees unless they're 4 inches or anything up to 4 inches?
We don't tell them that, but if they're going to develop it, the idea is when you develop a community, we want some trees, we want it to look nice. That's trying to protect our community by having nice trees, some trees left. And if a developer can get around that by clear cutting it, and then coming back and asking for subdivision, maybe we need to have something, well, if you do that, it doesn't affect this request tonight, but we need to think about for the future. Because we can't require any vegetation to be planted, or can be in a sketch plan that comes back to us.
subdivision ordinance does require a 10-foot vegetative buffer around the perimeter of subdivisions. So that is a requirement there. And I mean,
So this, that if they construct, they be required to have a vegetative buffer, then they have to plant it.
they may have to plan it, yeah. I believe that at the night of the planning board meeting, they indicated they had left that much.
Okay, no.
Hang on a minute now.
I have an answer about that.
Okay, hang on. My point is that, I think you raise a good point, and I'd like for our staff and board to look at how do we prevent clear-cut property that can try to, and maybe, I'm not saying they're trying to do that, but people could use that to get around leaving the certain trees and giving proper vegetative buffers to surrounding communities and development. We probably need to look at that as we are now looking at our ordinances and, looking at that. We probably need to revisit that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact of the matter is the owner would have never bought the property had he not known that he was going to develop the property, especially with the way it's gone, right? He bought the property, cleared the property, now he's going through the steps. The next is we'll submit a plat and this is how we're going to develop it.
There's any violation because it was cut before you made the application. That's what I want to clarify.
Yes.
I appreciate you pointing it out to this board because I want to get my head around that for the future. Okay.
Thank you.
So, if you got additional, if you got, ma'am, listen to me. If you have additional questions, you have to come to the mic because we're recording.
I was just trying to save some time.
No, we don't want
Stephen
to save
Hayes.
time. We want to get on the road.
Please attempting to state his name for the
Stephen
record.
Hayes.
Stephen
Hayes.
Thank you.
If you don't speak tonight, you need to come to the microphone before you speak.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to save you some time. Prior to a single piece of timber being cut on that property, Mr. Burns, who is the chairman of the planning committee, he's part of Allen Burns with Troy Allen, and then Mr. Johnson is somehow associated, I'm not sure how, I can't speak to it. My point is, before a single piece, he told our neighbor, Mr. Batchelor, that he was, before a single tree was cut, that he was going to build 5 or 6 houses on that property before a single tree was cut. And then when he cut, he did leave the 10, he clear cut it except for a buffer. And the buffer is a scrap tree.
Planned or developed.
So it was planned. He did not, he did just what Mr. Hayes said. He went in there, he cut the timber, and then he brought forth the plan. He knew when he bought the property what he was going to do with it. And he did it and to circumvent the rules. But Mr. Batchelor could testify to that if he were here.
Are we looking for anything new? You can say you agree with the previous comments, but let's don't repeat because we've been going over this about 40 minutes.
I know. Kathy Gentry again. I think it just would be so simple just to keep it A1 and build bigger houses. It's like a no-brainer.
Well, let me answer that and we're going to move on.
Okay.
Keeping it A1 does not guarantee you have bigger houses. You don't control the size of the houses, only the number of houses.
But if you can only put in 3.
You can have R6 and have 3,000 square foot houses on it. So we don't control the size of the construction.
I want to be brief, Mr. Chairman, Keith Johnson again. The only thing I want to comment on is we're here just for rezoning, representing Mr. Burns, Mr. Allen. They understand they have to meet all the subdivision requirements when that time comes.
Right,
and as far as and I've said it, heard it 3 times, and I wasn't going to say anything, and they can play the tape back, and we stated this at the planning board, no one ever said, ever out of my mouth, anybody's mouth, what size houses are going to be there. Although that really doesn't have anything to do with what we're here tonight for. That never was stated. Thank you.
Anyone else wanting to speak in opposition to this result? Anything besides flooding and the size of the houses that you're concerned about and the population increase? Seeing no one else wanting to speak, I'm going to close the public hearing and I'll listen to the board have any discussion, comments.
Mr. Chairman, I hear the concerns, but as you stated earlier, we are here tonight to discuss the rezoning of the property. At this point, I do not see a legal reason to deny the request for rezoning. The next meeting, the sketch plan, That's when we'll go over all of the concerns, I believe, that were brought up tonight. So as of tonight, I don't see a reason to deny this request because it is similar size lots within the area. And that's just my opinion.
Any other comments?
I'll just ask a question, are there any other R1 in the area?
Hawk Hammock is R3, it's actually multifamily. They could have had 10 or 12 houses, but they just didn't. They have larger lots. As I looked at the packet, their lots are from, I want to say, 1.5 acres to 2 acres, maybe some a little more than 2 acres. And these appear to be ½ acre to 1 acre. So as far as the size of the lot, in the zoning, this is a lesser zoning. That's what I'm looking at.
Zoning actually.
R1 is less than R3. So it becomes down to between the constituents, the developer, and the Hawk Hammock and the people street, the size of the things they have questions about. And I guess something you said earlier that I've always appreciated, the only way to control the land is to own it.
Yeah, that's
As
what I
long
always
as it's
say.
in the character of the zoning in that area, and we're not setting a precedent.
I do have one
We'll
question.
a hard time denying it.
So does Hawk Hammock have an active HOA? Because they can control the size of the house if they have an active HOA.
They're all sold, the houses are all
If
sold.
they, that's yes or no, either they do or they don't. If they have an active HOA, then they can restrict what's going on.
That's not part of Hawk Hammock,
It's not part of it.
No, well then,
It's not even.
No.
but it affects Hawk Hammock because it butts up against us.
So when I'm looking at it from the fact that I'm looking at the zoning that's around it,
yeah.
once again, we're not even legally allowed to think at this point to look and say, well, you can't go to a certain size house.
Right, that's the reason I said, is there an HOA?
And his point was that HOA, if it was on HOA, they could determine a size house
Right.
legally, that we cannot do. We have to, and we have to be careful not to deny zoning that is less
Correct.
density than Hawk Hammock and some of the surrounding areas.
And I was saying, to answer the question, all of this is Springfield, right? When you go up here, these are all R1, unincorporated county. Obviously, everything red you see here is included in Hawk Hammock, and that would be R3.
R3. So it's all one around it in R3, and that's, I hear our constituents, and I want to make sure that we hear those concerns about flooding as we go through the process.
When you go a little bit up here, there's an AR1, so I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. So as the staff goes through, not the planning board, but our staff, engineering goes through the land application and detention, retention, we hear the concerns about the water, and make sure we do not create water issues for our constituents. But for me, I don't know how we can legally not get ourselves in a bind to deny this zoning tonight, since there's R3 and R1 all around it. So, any other discussion on the board?
I am concerned, and I'm not saying it has anything to do with the zoning on the clearing. Just suppose it was not cleared. They simply, it was tomorrow. They got a zoning tonight, and it was tomorrow, and they went in there and cut trees. Have they violated anything? Did they need an LDA to do that?
No, the LDA comes out, they haven't touched the earth yet. I mean, the trees, the timber permit that issued out of Development Services, it's unfortunately, it's more of a formality on our part. The applicant comes in, completes the permit, tells us where the cutting is going to take place. We send that information to the tax assessor for their information, and
Make sure you understand what he's asking. If they decided they were going to do a development for the cutting timber, now that was my question earlier.
And I'm not accusing you, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this. This is very interesting.
Loophole we need to close for the future. So you have 5 acres. I want to come to you and I ask for rezoning because I want to develop 5 houses. Okay? And the board approves that. Next day, I go out and I clear cut. Have I made a violation? Have disturbed the soil, but I've cut the timber. Is that not a violation of our ordinance and a violation of land use?
it might be, I think it might be superseded by state law.
Well, we're talking about subdivision design.
There's typical, you know, well.
Yeah, this subdivision, we don't have a design for a subdivision yet, it's just a piece of land.
Right, and so what the gentleman had quoted was our subdivision design standards, and that's one of many standards that we look at is preservation of trees. So, to the question, it's two different processes. When we're discussing, the subdivision of the property and whether or not it meets our design standards, substreets is a design standard as well. That's one of the things that you look at, but we're not doing that now. We're just simply doing the rezoning, and which is why most of the time the timber permits are done, prior to subdivision application, and which is what this case was.
Now, I understand, I just want to see if there's something we need to do to tighten that up in the future, that's all I was saying.
Sure.
Well, it's always been my understanding, as long as you didn't disturb the roots of the ground, cut trees, you could mulch areas, you're not technically disturbing the ground. And I could be wrong, but everything I've been involved with, as long as you don't uproot the trees and bring in the roots, and it's not helping.
We've already closed the public hearing, I'm sorry.
Oh, I've looked at the picture.
Yeah, but we've already closed the public, this is our time to discuss.
All right.
Thank you, Doug. So, I think there's some things we can look at there. And if the board should approve the zoning tonight, the vegetation, it's in the buffers and all, needs to be looked at to answer some of the concerns. Can you make sure you hold the line on those things? Okay. Any other discussion from the board? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning request of staff and planning board recommendations.
So,
Motion is by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. What's your last name? To approve the rezoning. Staff and planning board recommendations. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed no. And carries. All right, we'll do the second reading. Consideration to approve the second reading application by Allen Land Investors LLC. Rezone 5.5 acres located on Early Street, AR1 to R1, map number 388, Austin 4 in the 4th District. A motion to approve the second reading.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Burdette to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed no. And carries. So the zoning is approved tonight, but we will follow closely the concerns you have about the flooding and make sure that all those requirements are met. That concludes our public hearings tonight. We move back to our administrative reports. Go back to our county manager, see if you have any additional administrative
Simply the COVID census and the support letters are concluded.
So I'll sign those this evening if you have ready for the summer for this
Yes.
evening. Okay, I'll do that. All right, let's see, from the clerk, is there any comments from the clerk tonight? Reports?
Just your bill and monthly report, which you already have. That's it.
Very good. Anything from anybody on the staff? I'll go around and see if the commissioners have anything.
I don't have anything. Well, yeah, I'll ask Tim something. How about the roads? What we do about the roads? We started building any?
The Timber Gate's the first one, and our last meeting with that, which was, I was out all last week, which
Yeah.
the end of the week before that, they had committed to completing that before the end of this month, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And I have 4 witnesses, so.
They might have to work, might have to put on a night shift.
Yeah, okay.
That's all I have.
The one thing that we put off, we removed item 2, is that going to come back up at the resolution through this process?
Yeah, it's going to come back up. We just want a chance to review it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, on the part where it talked about notifying the chairman, to add, the chairman should notify the board. We might not always have a Tim in the lesson, so, just to cover ourselves on what the.
That's one way to put it off, so we can get it out, we can all look at it, review it.
Yeah, that
I had some
was
comments
all.
earlier, I think they've already
in case something goes deeper, then everybody's aware, the board's aware that there's an issue, rather than just being handled by that one. That's all I got on that. Just one consideration, you know, as the taxes do get larger, you know, it's due to increases in values. You know, a lot of people out there still on fixed incomes. You know, we put this on our retreat thing for some other way. I know we already have some programs in place. You know, if somebody's on a fixed income and they're in their home and it's worth $100,000, and we go through economic upturn like we're in, and now so it's worth $180,000, which is very possible. I've seen some great values up there right now. You know, can we do anything else to kind of protect that person? That, you know,
We do have something for them already.
we do have a little something.
No, it's a big something. It's the Carter
Make much of a
Burns.
difference.
The Carter Burns exemption. Just so everybody understands the Carter Burns exemption. Now, if it declines like it did in 09, it can go back up to the original value. But once you're at that value, that base homestead value, it cannot go up more than the COLA, 3%, or the actual appraised value, whichever's less, right? Whichever's less.
The lesser.
The lesser. So so if you,
That protects everybody.
no, if you have a homestead, you're talking about the person who bought their home, you've got a homestead value, so I paid $150,000 for my home, that's all I can afford. Next year, the market goes to $200,000. Theirs cannot go up to $200,000. It can only go up, the COLA, if it's 1.2, that's all it can go up.
Okay.
So they actually have it.
So that does help some. It just,
It's a huge, the Carter's Burns exemption is a huge exemption for them, it's bigger than the homestead exemption.
okay.
So and that protects them from getting that big jump.
Yeah. No, that's the one thing that I worry about. Those helps so much to people on the fixed income.
And that's why they put that in there.
Yes, sir. As far as the accounting area goes, the banking RFQ, if we initiate anything on that?
I do want to, I had a conversation with Christie on that. I do want to discuss that, I know we were discussing having a retreat next week, just on some of the complications and the fees on that. But Christie has been trying to get some information on how an RFP process would go forward on.
I believe the Board of Education does that, if we're going to copy them.
Yeah.
What will we do about the tree? What will we do about the tree?
That's a conversation.
Okay.
Start it off.
You started off. You know, there was some discussion, I guess, among some individuals, some wanting to kind of just summarize what I've been hearing, and you chime in and look at a few minutes and make a decision tonight. We feel like if we are away, we will get more accomplished because there's less distractions. I think we all agree with that. That's not the question. That's when we go off and on the county because we're not told about our works or our family. And when we're here, we cut our wives and our kids would be home at 5 o'clock or 5:30. We go when we're away. We stick around until we get that work done. We just get so much more done. That being said, with this uptick in COVID, what I'm hearing is that do we really want to travel to another place? We may can control the environment in another place like the Kingdom Ranch, but we may not can control the environment. Would it be better to meet here where we can maybe control the environment a little bit better? And look at a retreat away later on. And I'm open. I do want to hold the line. I do think we need to meet. I don't think we need to put it off.
Right. I'm 100% with that.
That's what I'm at because
We have no reason.
huh?
Why would you want to not put it off for a month and a half?
We got things at the last retreat we had was in February and March that we need to address related to our water, our sewer, and other infrastructure. I want some in-depth discussion about some things that they've moved and not moved as fast as they should. We need to look at some engineering issues on that. Not personal engineers, but I mean, there's so much that we need to do to get out ahead of what we're at. And I don't think October is going to help us to do that. I think we need to do it now. We can do it safely. We're around each other already. You know, we're not talking about a community event. We're talking about our board and 3 or 4 staff. Yes, sir.
And kind of the retreat format, more of a kind of a workshop type environment. We do have draft plans of three two master plans and one feasibility study that we wanted to present to the board. So, you all in an open format can just kind of communicate back and forth on what your thoughts on moving forward. Those would be the transportation master plan, the stormwater feasibility study, and the solid waste master plan. And so, those are pretty much wrapped up right now, and they're just kind of waiting for an opportunity to present them to the board as a whole in a more free-form format where you all
We got
can
some
communicate
timely
that.
stuff we need to get done.
What?
We got some timely stuff.
Yeah.
You really need to stay on top of. So I would like to see us move forward, maybe do it locally, and have maybe a meal carried in at lunch. We don't have to go out. That provides more control for the environment. And let's do as much as we can, and then let's look and see where this uptick is in maybe February. Maybe we do an off-campus retreat then, and we can roll up our sleeves and really spend the long hours. But there's some things we need to keep moving on solid waste.
I'm fine either way. Is the ACCG conference still scheduled, or they canceled out?
For November?
Yes.
There's some discussion going on right now. In fact, I'm going to attend a webinar on Friday, I think it is, where they're going to discuss that. So I'm not sure.
The only reason I brought that up is just, if they're still having that, I think we can have our retreat wherever.
But that's November.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not now.
Yeah, we'll know more.
But I'm getting for wherever. If we need to do it here.
Recent uptick, and then, just jumping around. But that was my biggest concern, as far as the safety part goes, related. We're public service of the county. If there's things that are timely we need to handle, I'm all for jumping on board and getting it done.
So would we just come here that Saturday, Friday? I don't remember.
There's been some talk about doing it at the gym, but I'm not sure that's going to be. The gym, the acoustics are going to be so bad. We can make sure this. I'd be over here because we have the projectors and we can spread out, and it's more set up for what we need to do. So I would say we just right here, like we did at our February retreat, get done what we can, keep that ball moving, and then let's look at an off-campus retreat maybe early in 2022, where we can divide the conference.
I would probably boil that agenda down to the things that we really, really need to handle. Maybe, if we had more time.
Put that front loaded for those times and days, and then maybe do our stuff not so timely to do that, if we have time to do it.
So that being said, are you still wanting to consider the 2.5 days, or are we saying we want to narrow it down?
I would go with Friday and Saturday still, is what I would do. We may not do Sunday, but it takes a lot of time to go through these studies that we have. And there's several items that are still on our agenda that we need to look at. There's some applications we've made, we need to review that. We may need to go in and come in.
Yeah, we could do Friday and Saturday, skip Sunday, but that'd be tolerable.
If we don't need all day Saturday, we won't take all day Saturday.
Right.
You see again why we like to go away, because once you're away,
You try.
you know you're there, and you're gonna get all
We're more productive when we're away. And I don't say that because I'm a homebody. I would love for y'all to come to my house. They don't be the best.
But around this table are busy people, very active lives, and so it's hard to get on your calendars. It was hard to get this date, so I'd like to stick to it. Let's do it right over here. Let's cater a lunch and just have good protocol, having 6 foot between us. We can hear each other really well. We can get it, and we can start advancing that ball down the court. Is everybody okay with that? All right. I don't hear any objection to that, so I'll task the staff to go ahead and getting to us an agenda that we've all give you some input on. You got your input. What it would look like, but those priority things that first we can start looking at that in time.
So, just so we can time this right, we're probably talking like a 9 to, let's say on a Friday, a 9 to 5 with a series of breaks in there, and then on Saturday, 9 to
Say 9 to
past
5.
lunch, or?
9 to 5, and if we throw it lunch, we'll quit at lunch. But I
Okay.
have lunch prepared for both days.
Okay, I just want to make, cut back or add stuff in there, depending on your schedule, so we'll get something done.
You know, anything we've ever done on retreat, when we start brainstorming and going through it, we usually have to cram the very final things in at the end, so I don't think we're going to.
It goes quick.
There's always one that comes up.
Yeah, that we never quite get through everything. Because I remember last time we said, we'll have a meeting we'll have a follow-up. And then we said, well, we'll get there early. We did that. We're like an hour or two early follow-up for everything we didn't get to. So I'm sure we'll use the 2 days.
I think what's going to help with that, and you all kind of touched on that at one time before, is to have work sessions before your commission meetings. We should probably do that more regularly than what we do. It's what they did in the past, Bill. You guys know that, so
Yeah.
I think that'll be helpful.
I think it'd be good to come back in October, 2 months after this, and have a 1 or 2 hour work session, see where we're at with those items. We did that after that last one,
Yeah.
see where we're at, and then follow up with the off-campus. Because we probably got $75 to $100 million of projects in the next 3 to 5 years. We got to stay on top of it. And we all agree with that. All right, I think we've got a plan. Everybody good with that? Any other discussion? Did we get a county tonight? All right, let's see, we have a need for executive session, I'm an attorney, so we can't have one. We don't have any executive session minutes to approve, so I don't see the other business. Am I missing anything? Are we good for the business tonight? All right, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Deloach. Second. Who seconded it?
I second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And we stay